2 years. The BC Real Estate Association says we need to build 25% more homes a year to keep up, and that doesn't account for temporary immigrants.
That number is actually far higher than permanent residents. In fact, last year there were over 140,000 temporary residents, temporary foreign workers and international students.
But given the current pace of building, the Construction Association worries the province won't be able to keep up or catch up.
So right now we have, incredible delays in development permits, in building permits. We have inconsistencies in what municipalities are looking for.
He says one solution is to make it easier to build in BC.
Let's simplify it. Let's make it easier. We're not talking about dropping accountability, but let's find ways to minimize the risks for community, minimize the risks for builders, maximize the attraction of the sector.
But the province says immigration targets are out of their hands.
Well, I've spoken to the federal minister multiple times, urging them to consider tying their immigration numbers to both housing starts and also affordable housing.
This immigration advocate says both governments need to come up with a 10-year plan.
We need to look at housing stock, size of housing, location of housing, how it interlinks with transit and other social amenities over the next number of years.
A record-breaking 430,000 people became permanent residents of Canada in 2022. The federal government expects that to rise to 500,000 by 2025. Eva Yuguensenge, CBC News, Vancouver.
The provincial government is being pushed to protect affordable housing for some of the city's most vulnerable people. Yesterday, we told you how rent at some SRO buildings now costs more than $1,000 for a single room, no private kitchen or bathroom, and in some cases, those places are infested. Our Joel Ballard spoke with BC's housing minister today to see what the provincial government is prepared to do, if anything.
Minister Kaila, we're seeing rent prices at some privately owned SROs soaring way past the point of affordability. What specific action is your government taking to try and bring those rents down?
Well, SROs that are on the private market, of course, operate just like the private market. They have a rent cap in place, so 2%, just like the rest of the rental market. That is in place right now to ensure that they can't raise the rates any higher than that.
You know, you talk about the rent cap. One of the issues that we're seeing is not the yearly increase, but the increase in rent between tenancies. Has your government looked into the idea of vacancy control that's tied to the unit, but not necessarily the tenant?
Yeah, we certainly know some advocates have been calling for that. We are looking at what we can do. Right now, we're not looking at vacancy control. But that being said, we will explore other measures that we can put in place to ensure rental protections are there for renters.
There's also suggestions that the province could buy privately owned SROs to keep the rent affordable and keep the conditions livable. Will you do that, and when?
Well, we always are looking for opportunities. We don't want to lose any spaces. If the market is right now, there's something being sold, we of course will consider it. But our goal right now is to build affordable housing, supportive housing for those that need it most.
Over the weekend, the province did announce that they will be building 330 new units in the downtown east side by the end of June, and they will consist of a mix of modular housing and SRO units.
Joel Ballard reporting earlier tonight. The federal government, meanwhile, is walking back some restrictions on non-Canadians buying homes here, 3 months after new rules were already put in place. The law initially restricted non-Canadians from buying residential property for 2 years after they arrived as a way to address rising home prices. Now, non-Canadians with at least 183 days remaining on a work permit can purchase residential properties. The change was made to ensure housing is used to house people rather than be a foreign investment. Ozempic is a diabetes drug that's been widely misused for weight loss, making its demand soar over the past year. Now BC is trying to protect its supply. Lindsay Duncombe has more on what the province is doing to prevent Americans from getting their hands on it.
Colin Taylor has type 2 diabetes. He takes the drug Ozempic to control his blood sugar. Supply is tight, and he just learned American patients are part of the problem.
I was quite shocked that we're not keeping our supplies here. We're shipping them down across the line, and it's affecting us.
BC now says it will move to restrict access of Ozempic to out-of-country patients.
Currently, we don't have a shortage of Ozempic, but the trend is in that direction, and action is required.
In the first 2 months of the year, more than 15,000 Ozempic prescriptions went from BC to the United States. That's more than 15% of all scripts written for the drug. The average American demand for BC drugs is just 0.5%.
This is concerning, and in my view, it has to stop.
In my Ozempic trial.
The company behind the drug is aggressively marketing Ozempic on both sides of the border. For diabetes, sure, but the American ads don't shy away from the weight loss side effect.
And you may lose weight. Adults lost up to 14 pounds.
Hollywood is buzzing with reports of who may have dropped sizes thanks to Ozempic or similar drugs.
Follow-up about Ozempic.
And influencers are pushing it. BC says American patients are reaching out online. Almost all the prescriptions were written in Nova Scotia, then submitted to 2 pharmacies based in Metro Vancouver, where the drugs are processed and shipped south. Cross-border online pharmacies aren't illegal, but they are subject to regulation. The province of Nova Scotia, the drug manufacturer, pharmacists and doctors all promise to work with BC to ensure enough supply stays here. Lindsay Duncombe, CBC News, Vancouver.
To other news now, a memorial has been set up outside a busy downtown Vancouver Starbucks for the young father stabbed to death outside on Sunday. Police say 37-year-old Paul Schmidt and another man got into a brief altercation on the corner of Granville and Pender just after 5:30 p.m. Schmidt's mother told CBC News the attack happened as Paul was picking his wife up from work with their 3.5-year-old daughter in tow. She said his wife went into the coffee shop to buy some drinks while Paul stayed outside holding their child. The head of the Downtown Business Improvement Association says community safety is a huge issue.
I think it's important that we continue to work with the local government, the provincial government, to keep community safety top of mind. Obviously, we're in close communication with VPD, we're in close communication with the city, and we've been advocating for increased presence of police in downtown Vancouver, and we're starting to see that happen.
Bystanders flagged down a police officer, and they arrested 32-year-old Inderdeep Singh Gosal inside the coffee shop shortly after. He's now charged with second-degree murder. Police say they don't believe the 2 men knew each other. And in Victoria, crime and public safety was top of mind during question period in the wake of Paul Schmidt's killing. The CBC's Justin McElroy has more on the marked difference in tone at the legislature today.
It was a different sort of question period in the legislature today, a quieter one, less insults, ad hominem attacks, pounding on tables, with the BC Liberals asking a number of questions quietly and to the point about crime and safety in British Columbia communities, sparked by the stabbing and death of Paul Schmidt 2 days ago in downtown Vancouver. The NDP, in turn, not insulting the opposition Liberals or pointing fingers themselves, but trying to answer the questions themselves, saying what they've done over the last couple of years while comparing themselves to other cities.
Under this Premier's watch, homelessness, encampments, and public safety has all gotten worse. This has been the former Attorney General and now the Premier's responsibility for years, not months or weeks, but for years. And the results just keep getting worse.
If you look just down south to Washington State, if you look down to Oregon, if you don't look down to California, every community is dealing with this challenge and trying to find ways. So how we're dealing with this, Honourable Speaker, is examples I shared yesterday around the downtown east side. We had 200 people in an encampment. We found housing for 90 of those people.
And while the government is accurate that this is a major topic of discussion in most major cities in the west coast of America right now, and that more work is being done, people in many communities across BC talking about this in heated tones certainly was the biggest point of discussion in the last municipal election in many big cities and looks to be a continued point of contention provincially for some time to come. Justin McElroy, CBC News. Victoria.
Vancouver City Council is restricting the sale of bear spray. A new bylaw means business owners cannot sell the product to anyone under 19.
I know that it's used for a variety of reasons, including for criminal activities, but recognize also that carrying bear spray is a legitimate self-defense tool that many people employ.
Those 19 and older will have to show ID when they want to buy it, and retailers need to keep a record of those who purchase it for 1 year. Rule breakers could be fined up to $1,000. The bylaw was put in place to try to reduce the growing use of bear spray in crimes. Vancouver police told Council they were seeing bear spray increasingly used as a weapon by young people. A family from Bellingham, Washington has now been awarded $2.5 million by the BC Supreme Court after a deadly crash in Surrey years ago caused by an errant motorcyclist. Miriam Galley was driving along King George Boulevard near 48th Avenue on her way home from church in 2017. The ruling found her SUV flipped over into a water-filled ditch after trying to avoid a speeding motorcyclist, trapping the 4 people inside upside down underwater. A passersby managed to pull the family, including 2 teenagers, out of the water before emergency crews arrived. Galley died after 6 days in a coma. The judge acknowledged her family's grief and suffering. There was sad news in Vancouver's music community. Composer Jocelyn Morlock has died. Morlock was loved for her emotional music and ability to connect with audiences. Her work, My Name is Amanda Todd, picked up a Juno for Best Orchestral Work in 2018. The piece was praised for turning a moment of tragedy into a poignant message of hope, empathy, and tolerance. She worked as Vancouver Symphony composer in resident for 5 seasons. Much of her music was inspired by the sounds of birds. Jocelyn Morlock was 53. It's being called a cosmic coincidence in the night sky. 5 planets lined up in an arc this evening, said to be visible from almost anywhere on Earth. Here was the view from English Bay just around sunset tonight. Not so easy to see Mars, Uranus, Venus, Mercury, and Jupiter all visible on the western horizon. Experts suggested you spot the half moon and trace a visual line down to see Mars. Below would be Uranus with a green and blue glow, and Venus. Underneath that would be Mercury, while closest to the horizon will be Jupiter. Getting away from city lights, also quite key to better your chances for clearer viewing. We try.
Ramadan is definitely more than just fasting.
Now, some Muslims are teaching neighbors the true meaning of one of the holiest months in the Islamic calendar. That story when we come back. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream tonight. A New Brunswick bacon-themed potluck called Bacon encourages convention goers to bring along their most creative bacon-themed dish. And once a winner is declared, all the proceeds are donated to food banks.
I won in 2009. I made bacon-wrapped teriyaki dates, and they were a hit. And it's actually how my husband and I ended up becoming married.
I'm the 2016 champion. I'm very proud of that. So I didn't even enter a dish this year because I've already proved myself. It is the 6th biennial, even though we don't do it every 2 years, Bacon, a bacon convention. We're a fun group of friends who like food and giggles, and we decided in 2009 that we should have a bacon conference and call it the Bacon. Bacon is better. We've done it 6 times now over 14 years, 2009, 2011, 2014, 16, 2020, and now 2023. It's basically a big potluck. People bring bacon-inspired dishes, and they've gotten more and more outrageous over the years because you've really got to bring your A game to win now.
Not only do we want to experience the wonder of bacon, we totally feel that we can win.
Usually our judges don't last more than 1 term because you have to taste everything, and then you have to spend the next 3 years recovering from eating all of that bacon.
I always find that sweets are weird. But I think the most intense thing I ever sampled was shake and bake bacon. It was so salty, like you could put it in your mouth and you could feel all of the moisture leave your body.
Artery clogging delicious. We do a donation to the food bank Alimentaire Depot. In the past, we would do like a can drive, but in recent years, we've been doing it as a cash donation. The Food Depot can stretch cash donations so much further.
We're doing a 50-50, and so the 50-50 winnings will go to the Moncton Food Bank.
It is nearly 1 week into Ramadan, one of the holiest months in the Islamic calendar. And Muslims in Metro Vancouver say they want to teach their neighbors about the true meaning of the month. Our Zara Premji takes us beyond the fasting.
When you think of Ramadan, what comes to mind? Probably fasting, no eating from sunrise to sunset, family time, prayers, and celebration. But
Ramadan is definitely more than just fasting. That's just, this piece of this pie.
People just focus on the eating and drinking, and it's a lot more than eating and drinking.
As a kid, we would always think about, giving back and serving, and it was very important in our family to do that.
The act of charitable work and service is one of the pillars of Islam, but during the month of Ramadan, the desire to give back is heightened, especially for those who have been on the receiving end of kindness when they needed it most.
It's something that I've always been drawn to as a young kid. It's something that my mother and my father instilled in us. When we first moved to Canada, we came here as refugees, and just seeing the outpour of love and support from our community, especially our neighbors.
And much like Christmas hampers, there are Ramadan hampers.
We want to make sure that the families who are fasting have food on their table at the time of breaking their fast. So we provide food hampers to families who are who could use a little bit of support, because right now, as you know, food prices are just skyrocketing.
And it doesn't stop there.
We also go out and support the community at large, right? So we do a lot of work around working with the Richmond Food Bank.
And no matter what sect of Islam, the spirit of giving and working together has broken past those borders. Fundraising happening in different masjids, jamaat khanas, and even churches and grocery stores during this holy month.
In our Smiley community, we actually have the Ramadan food drive. And in all of our jamaat khanas, we're allowed to bring non-perishable food items. And then we donate to several different food banks across the Lower Mainland.
But why do this all? 11-year-old Amira says the answer is simple.
It feels really good to just know that I'm helping other people and that they've helped me so much in my life, and that I can really give back to my community like that.
Her family says volunteerism was embedded in them from a very young age.
It's a really humbling experience, and it brings a lot of happiness to me and also my family, because it's a way to spend time and also give back to the community and kind of leave a legacy.
And this family intends to see this service through for generations to come.
Service is not something you're entitled to, but it's a gift that's given to you, and to share that gift with my children, and hopefully my children will do the same, is very profound for us.
Now, members of the Muslim community say if you want to give back, you don't have to wait for the month of Ramadan. There's 365 days a year to lend a helping hand. Ramadan Mubarak. Zara Premji, CBC News, Vancouver.
There's a live shot of BC Place and Cambie Street. Another gorgeous South Coast day, and we get a few more before a bit of a change. Kuljeet Kaila will have your BC-wide weather forecast right after this.
I don't know if there's a particular painting that is being considered or quoted.
Professor Jerry Wasserman is just the right age for UBC. He likely won't retire until the 21st century. The university wants to hire more professors his age, but it can't if a recent BC Supreme Court decision stands. The decision says people can't be discriminated against because of age, so elderly professors can work as long as they want.
It's a short-term problem, but it's a very serious short-term problem.
The problem is demand for young academics is becoming intense as universities try to replace elderly professors that are teaching now. UBC wants to get into the bidding war, but it can't afford to unless it enforces mandatory retirement, or alternatives like opting out of the charter so UBC can legally enforce its mandatory retirement rule.
Of course, it's a drastic suggestion, but remember that the consequences I'm describing to you of not having financial relief are also very drastic. So I am faced with a very drastic problem as far as the future of the university is concerned.
The government isn't promising more money to UBC, but it doesn't like the idea of opting out.
And, it would be a power, I know, that we would use very sparingly, not to solve the problem of university professors alone.
We are in the business right now of having to plan. And it's very sad that we have not prepared ourselves for the planning exercise.
Obviously making a positive value.
The problem of an aging faculty is happening at universities right across the country, and the solution may come from the courts. The decision that threatens UBC's policy of mandatory retirement is being appealed to the Supreme Court of Canada. Ed Watson, CBC News, Vancouver.
Land Back is a CBC original podcast where we uncover land theft in Canada and look at how Indigenous people are taking it all back. Land Back is out now on CBC Listen or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On April 11th, join CBC Vancouver's Johanna Wagstaff at the Alumni UBC webinar with Dr. Samard and her work on the Mother Tree Project. The focus is to connect First Nations, forestry companies, government, and academics to create resilient forests and stewards of the land. Register at alumni.ubc.ca. And on April 15th, join CBC at the Vancouver Vaisakhi Festival, a Sikh celebration of the coming of a new year.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Time for our BC-wide weather forecast tonight with Kuljeet Kaila. Gorgeous day across the south coast. We're getting a bit spoiled, Kuljeet. And a little breezy, too.
It was a little breezy, and I was actually surprised to find out that we did have a bit of a wind warning along the south coast for Vancouver and around Greater Victoria as well for tonight, overnight, and by tomorrow morning it will start to die down. 50 kilometers an hour wind along the coast for Greater Victoria, 40 here in Vancouver and Tofino, 20 kilometer an hour winds for Nanaimo and Campbell River. So windy conditions that'll take us into tomorrow morning, but there will be sunshine tomorrow. The other thing that we're looking at is this ridge of high pressure that's sweeping across the province. Now, this is what's clearing out the clouds and making for sunny conditions, but right behind it is a low pressure system that is coming, and it's bringing some rain with it for the south coast. For tomorrow, temperatures and conditions across the province, mostly cloudy for Prince George and Williams Lake, steady at around 5 or 6 degrees. Some sunshine along the coast for Prince Rupert and 7 degrees. Sunny for Port Hardy, 11 degrees, 14 in Victoria, double digits for Kelowna as well at 13, 10 degrees in Cranbrook, and sunshine there as well. So we're getting to share this with parts of the province as well. It'll last for the next couple of days, Thursday and Friday, and then that low pressure system brings us rain by Friday morning, up to 25 millimeters of rain. Then we're going to see rain on and off for the weekend, so some wet conditions through there. We will dry up a little bit by Sunday evening, and then we'll see some sunshine at the start of next week, but along with that comes some cloud, and that on and off shower activity will continue into Monday and Tuesday. So really soak up this sunshine in the next couple of days. Dan?
If you need a hat, as I obviously do, yes, good idea. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
And that is your late news for Tuesday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 o'clock. I will be away from now until next Tuesday, so we will see you then. Good night.